On February 22, 2026, a Sunday morning, the city of Guadalajara went completely dark. Schools shut down, taxis disappeared from the streets, airlines canceled flights mid-booking. An entire city of 5 million people locked their doors and didn't come out. The U.S. Embassy sent one message to every American in Mexico: do not leave your room. All of this because one man got on a helicopter and didn't survive the ride. For 10 years, the DEA threw $15 million at anyone who could find him. For 10 years, the most powerful intelligence agencies on the planet came up completely empty. This man had more fentanyl flowing into America than anyone in history. He shot down military helicopters for fun. He made El Chapo's entire empire look like a neighborhood operation. This was the cartel's response to one man being killed. One man who for over a decade had made the Mexican government and the DEA look over their shoulder. This is the rise and fall of El Mencho. And trust me, you've never heard a story like this one. Here's the part that makes this story different from every other cartel story you've heard. And it's the detail that makes this whole thing so much more disturbing. El Mencho didn't grow up rich. He didn't inherit a drug empire. He grew up dirt poor in Michoacan, one of the most violent, lawless, forgotten corners of all of Mexico. No money, no connections, no future that anyone could see. So what did he do? He became a cop. Not because he believed in the law, but because he understood something most people never figure out. If you want to break the system, you need to learn how the system works first. He studied law enforcement from the inside. He watched how raids were planned. He watched how informants were handled. He watched exactly how the government hunted people like him. He learned the entire playbook. And then he switched sides and used every single page of that playbook against the people who trained him. When he eventually built the CJNG, El Mencho wasn't operating like a typical cartel boss making decisions on instinct and brutality alone. He was a tactician, a criminal mastermind with a law enforcement degree. He knew which officials to bribe and which ones to avoid. He knew how surveillance worked, so he could disappear from it. He knew how informant networks operated, so he could dismantle them before they ever got close. For over a decade, that knowledge kept him completely untouchable. While every other major cartel leader eventually got caught or killed, El Mencho moved through the shadows like he had a map nobody else could read. Because he did. But let's talk about the moment the world realized El Mencho wasn't just dangerous. He was different in a way that genuinely terrified people in power. Every cartel, no matter how violent, follows one unspoken rule. You do not go to war with the military openly. You bribe them. You avoid them. You work around them. Direct confrontation is a death sentence. Every cartel boss in history understood that. El Mencho looked at that rule and burned it to the ground. May 2015, a Mexican military helicopter flying over Jalisco on a routine operation. Standard procedure, the kind of thing that happens without incident hundreds of years without incident. The CJNG shot it out of the sky. Not with a rifle, not with small arms fire. They brought it down with a rocket launcher in broad daylight while soldiers were still inside. And then, and this is the part that separates El Mencho from every cartel boss before him, they filmed it. They posted it online. They wanted the entire world to watch. This wasn't just an attack. It was a broadcast, a message sent directly to the Mexican government, to rival cartels, to the DEA, and to anyone else watching. The message was 3 words: come find me. Think about what that moment meant. A cartel just declared open warfare against the military, not in a back alley, not quietly, publicly, brazenly, proudly. And the silence that followed, that was everyone realizing at the exact same moment that they were dealing with something they had never faced before. But the helicopter wasn't even the most disturbing part of his legacy. After that moment, El Mencho stopped pretending to hide in the shadows entirely. The CJNG started rolling through cities in armored vehicles built to military spec. They set up roadblocks with rocket launchers and 50-caliber machine guns. They hung bodies from overpasses with handwritten warning signs attached. They buried mass graves across multiple Mexican states. They posted execution videos online, not to cover their tracks, but specifically to recruit, to show young men in poverty what power looked like, to show rivals exactly what losing meant. Then, in 2020, in the middle of a global pandemic, while the world was completely distracted, the CJNG attempted to assassinate the Mexico City police chief in broad daylight. They surrounded his armored SUV convoy with multiple vehicles and opened fire with grenades and high-powered rifles. The chief survived. 3 of his bodyguards didn't. That's the level of ambition we're talking about. This wasn't a cartel hiding quietly in the mountains. This was an organization that genuinely believed it could replace the government. And funding all of it? Fentanyl. Not cocaine, not weed, fentanyl. A synthetic drug so powerful that a dose the size of a few grains of salt can kill a grown man. The drug that has claimed over 70,000 American lives every single year. Entire communities hollowed out, families destroyed. Every pill, every overdose, every grieving family. Every one of those had a supply chain. And at the top of that supply chain, for years, sat one man in the mountains of Jalisco, completely invisible to the world. By 2025, the pressure had become impossible to ignore. The United States officially designated the CJNG a foreign terrorist organization, the same classification reserved for ISIS and Al-Qaeda. President Trump had publicly and repeatedly demanded Mexico act, and quietly, behind closed doors, a joint U.S.-Mexico intelligence operation had been tracking El Mencho's movements for months. Not through informants who kept dying before they could talk, but through signals intelligence, patterns, communications, digital footprints so small most analysts would have missed them. The location they finally locked in, Tapalpa, a small, scenic mountain town in Jalisco. Peaceful, the kind of place that gets a tourism brochure and nothing else. Completely unremarkable, which was exactly why he was there. Weeks before moving in, a specially selected unit of Mexican Special Forces underwent intensive training with U.S. SEALs. The White House confirmed American intelligence support. Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum was careful to clarify, no U.S. boots on the ground, only information was exchanged. But the training was very, very real. February 22nd, 2026, Sunday morning. Tapalpa is quiet. The Special Forces team moves in fast. Before El Mencho's guards fully understand what's happening, the operation is already inside their perimeter. The cartel fights back, hard. 4 of El Mencho's men are killed immediately. A vicious, close-range gun battle erupts in what was supposed to be a quiet mountain town. When the gunfire stops, 3 men are wounded and in custody. One of them is El Mencho. He is loaded onto a military helicopter. The destination? Mexico City, a federal medical facility, a prison cell, a trial, decades behind bars. The kind of ending that sends a message to every cartel in the country. But El Mencho had a different ending. Somewhere over Mexico, in the air, in the dark, on a military helicopter, the most wanted drug lord in the Western Hemisphere died of his wounds. No courtroom, no handcuffs on camera, no perp walk in front of journalists, no Netflix documentary filmed while he was still breathing. Just a body arriving in Mexico instead of a prisoner. Gone. Within hours, Mexico erupted. Vehicles burned on highways across 12 states. Guadalajara became a ghost town. 25 members of Mexico's National Guard were killed in retaliatory attacks.
International flights to Puerto Vallarta and Guadalajara were canceled. The U.S. Embassy issued its shelter-in-place order. The cartel mourned the only way it knew, with violence. Now El Mencho is gone, but the CJNG is still standing, still armed, still rich, and with no clear successor, every faction inside that organization is already sharpening their knives. We've seen this movie before. When El Chapo fell, the Sinaloa cartel didn't disappear. It collapsed inward, and the bloodshed that followed was catastrophic. History doesn't repeat itself exactly, but down here, it rhymes every single time. El Mencho is dead. The story is not. If this hit different, subscribe. And I want to hear from you in the comments. Does El Mencho's death make Mexico safer, or did we just kick the hornet's nest?